what I'm going to talk about today is my OBE experience. For those of you who don't know what OBE is, OBE stands for Outer Body Experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right on into it about my experience. Okay, well, I had this experience back in November of 2002. Right after my son was born, I had a cesarean and I've discovered that many people have had OBE experiences after surgery. And this was the first surgery I've ever had in my life. And anyway, so my son was about a few days old. And at that time, I was just out on my own, maybe not quite a year yet after me and his father, which is now my husband, it was our first place. But after I had my son, I didn't want to go back home. You know, I was 19 and I was a little afraid. So I wanted to be around my grandmother. She always made me feel safe and protected. That's where I wanted to be. So after I had him, I stayed in the hospital maybe 2 to 3 days. And I believe it was the first night when I got to my grandmother's house when I had this experience. I don't remember what time it was. All I know is that it was late. And my son was born on the 21st of November. So I would say about 4 days later is probably when I had the experience, because I believe that it was the same night, the same day I got to my grandmother's house, that night when I had the experience. Now, from what I remember, I was hot. My grandmother, with it being the middle of November, it was cold. She wanted to make sure that it was warm in the house for the baby. But me, myself, I was hot. I remember laying there in the bed, the baby, our son, was in the bed with us, and I know you probably shouldn't have did that, but hey, that's what it was then. And with me having surgery, I remember I couldn't just turn and sleep like I would usually sleep, and plus he was in the bed and my husband was in the bed as well. And I just remember being hot and thinking how hot it was and how I just needed a little bit of air, just a little bit. Like I needed air. I remember being hot. I remember that clearly. And I kind of scooted myself up, but try not to make much of a fuss because, I've been cut on. So I've moved myself up, and at some point I began to doze off to sleep. And while sleeping, and I quote sleeping, I remember feeling this breeze on my face. I remember thinking, yes, air. And it's like I kind of sat up to follow. The air was pulling me. And I was going with the feel of the air, following the air, still kind of half asleep, but so glad I'm feeling this air. I feel coolness. But when I opened my eyes, and looked around the room for maybe a few seconds, I realized, that I have 360 view. I realized that I was looking at myself laying in the bed. And it wasn't like me standing somewhere else looking at myself. Well, then again, I guess you could say that. It's like, I want to say I had different perspectives of me looking at myself in the bed. And one of them was, the best way to describe it was my physical body laying in the bed and my soul lifted up out of my body from the waist as if it just sat up. And the other one was me standing right outside the bed looking at myself from that perspective. And even though I could see in 360 view, I want you all to know that I didn't see any angels. I didn't see any demons. I didn't see anything paranormal. It was just me. It was just me. It was just, my child and my husband in the room. I seen them, but I couldn't see through walls. I couldn't do any of that. I was just aware that I was not in my body. And I believe at some point, well, I did at some point, I was like, oh my God, am I dead? And it's like panic set in. And it's like I was trying to get back to my physical body. It was really scary. And after I got back in my body, however, I don't know how I managed to do that, but I did. It was just, I couldn't believe what had just happened. Even thinking about it now, even though I didn't see any ghosts or anything like that, or angels or demons or what have you, thinking back on it right now in this moment, I feel like and can almost see like I wasn't there alone. I believe my guide or guides were there with me, and for whatever reason I couldn't see them then. Maybe it was for me, more for me, that it might have been the best idea that I didn't see them, but it validated for me that we're not just our physical bodies. You know, it's one thing to know that you're not just your physical bodies, but it's another thing to experience and know for a fact without a shadow of doubt. The feeling is different. Kind of like, you know how everyone says there's angels all around you, just angels here, your loved ones is here, and you know, that sort of thing. But it's different when you actually experience it. It's like there's no, it, in that moment it becomes fact. It's not just your belief in it anymore. It's fact. It happened. You experienced it. So right now, today, I am extremely thankful for my OBE experience, because, and I'm thankful for it because even though I was afraid, I would probably want to do it if I had to do it over, I would do it exactly the exact same way, because in the long run, years on down the road, I seen how I needed to have the experience. I know for a fact that there is life outside of my physical being. My physical being is just a vehicle for the soul. But I'm so glad I had that experience, because it's no longer a myth or a hypothesis or whatever you want to call it. It's no longer that. It's fact. I was outside of my body. I experienced that. It was scary during the time, but I am so thankful for the experience. But because it brought clear validation that there is more to us than our physical being.